Okay, hello everybody. It's a great pleasure to have with us Theo Bitsakis. Theodoris was a PhD student here in Crete, at the University of Crete. Actually, he did his undergraduate, master's, and PhD with us. And then he started exploring the world, going first to the New World, to Caltech for a few years, and then decided to go a bit south to Mexico, where he actually got a permanent position. But then he decided that it was more interesting to come back to the really old Europe and get a position in the beautiful town of London in the UK. And the reason why we have Theodoris invited here is because, as you know, the advisory committee of the Institute suggested that it would be a good idea to actually provide information about careers outside academia to our students and all the members of the Institute. And to do that, we decided to select a few experienced individuals who have first-hand experience in what it takes to make this successful transition using the skills of a professional astronomer into the private sector. So Theodoris is currently a senior data scientist in HireVue, which I believe is an American company, if I remember.
That's right, yeah.
And he is using all the skills that he acquired in creating band merge catalogs and doing LCD fitting and a variety of things in order to make science out of data, but in a different sector. So thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Vasilis. Yeah, so before starting, I would like to congratulate, first of all, Vasilis, the Institute, and the Advisory Committee for this initiative. And the truth is that for most of us, when going into academia, we're never considering going out of it. We really like what we do. We really like research. And, you know, most of us, we do it for the sake of it and not, you know, to become wealthy or something, as you all know. However, it's always a good idea to, you know what's out there. And for that reason, today I'm going to talk to you about like my career path. It's not a special one in that respect, but there are so many options when one considers going outside of academia that, you know, you can't cover everything, you know, in a single discussion. So I'll show you mine, and then we can kick off with some you know, some questions and answers. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So yes, so as Vasilis mentioned, everything starts at the University of Crete in the early 2000s. I graduated from the physics department at the University of Crete in 2006, and then did my master's there. And I started my early ventures in astronomy, as you can see from this photo, in 2005. Then I completed my PhD. I got also to play with like bigger telescopes at that time. This is a photo from Skinnaka 2010, I think. And then my PhD was entitled The Galaxy Evolution Compact Groups, an infrared perspective, because we mostly researched the compact groups of galaxies from like observations from infrared telescopes, Spitzer at that time, while also other telescopes. And we also had ground-based observations from Skinnaka. That was my PhD. And then, as Vasilis mentioned, I moved to California, and I worked at the NASA Herschel Science Center, mostly on Herschel Pax and Spire observations of Higgs on compact groups. Over there, we overlapped with Tanyo, that I guess most of you already know from the Institute of Astrophysics. And we got to explore together the California and the neighboring states. So this is a photo from Palomar, the 200-inch Hale telescope, and from Death Valley in California. Then I moved to Mexico, and I did a postdoc at the Institute of Astronomy of the National University of Mexico. It's called UNAM, between 2014 and 16. And then actually I got a permanent job at a different institute of the same university, of the Institute of Radio Astronomy and Astrophysics. That was in a different campus in Morelia, a town about 3 hours from Mexico City. And there I worked again on compact groups, but also in HireVue surveys. We had actually some people in our departments, in our institute, that they were like leading figures in those surveys. And also I got to work with the star clusters in the Magellan Clouds. And of course, the main reason again was to, the opportunity to explore Mexico and Latin America. So I had to learn Spanish because I had to, in the second job, I had to also teach some introductory galactic astronomy and electrodynamics in Spanish, which was a little bit challenging at the beginning. So yeah, as I mentioned, I got to explore like several countries in Latin America, and also to use their facilities, amazing facilities. This photo is from Las Campanas in Chile in 2017. And it's a credit, I will give the credit to Grigoris, which is in our call as well. He got the photo. So we were there in the summer, in August 2017, and we're very lucky to actually be there the night that the gravitational wave 170817 was observed. That was the neutron star merger, the first to ever been recorded in history, and I think the only so far. So we were there that night, and we were actually one of the first teams to observe the optical counterparts, as you can see here. Then, while in Mexico, I start considering, moving into business. So about this, people, several people have different reasons for moving outside of academia. In my case, it was personal. I wanted to move together with my partners. The problem with one of the small, perhaps, problems with academia is that you have to move a lot around the world, in different institutes. And of course, that's great because you get to meet different people, a lot of experience, all the things that I just mentioned. However, when it comes to personal life, sometimes, stability is start being appreciated at some point. So in my case, that was the reason. And to be honest, at the beginning, I was completely lost. I didn't know what to do. That's why I praised these seminars as the one today. So here are 4 things that I think they're really important for one to consider if they want to make that this switch. So first of all, you have to talk to others who have already done it. So at that time, I started texting to several friends and all the colleagues that they've done the shift into business, and gather some information. The reason is that there are so many options out there, from government, finance, business, even when we're talking about business. I mean, there are so many options. You can work, I've seen astrophysicists working as purely engineers, as data scientists, machine learning specialists, even consultants and science communication specialists. So there are so many different options. And so you have to do your own market research and find what suits yourself, what's best for you. You definitely have to prepare for the job interviews. So the difference with academia is that, I say for those that perhaps they don't know, first of all, there is a plethora of jobs out there. So when you start applying, you will find hundreds of jobs within a few days that they match your criteria. Especially nowadays, after COVID, there are even more jobs because most of these sectors that I just mentioned, you can work remotely. So you can find a job almost anywhere in the world, doesn't matter, and work from your comfortable desk in Heraklion. So basically, you have first of all to sit down and gather some information about all the skills that you've acquired throughout the years that you were in astronomy, and most of them, they are transferable. In fact, many things, the one thing that I noticed is that when I was still in academia, like many things that we consider to be trivial because, you know, we live in a small bubble, they're not that trivial out there, and they're really highly valued by private businesses. So try to see what skills you have acquired and they are transferable to other sectors, and try to refresh your theoretical knowledge. Like here, I have like in the right some books that, you know, I explored at those days. The one at the bottom right corner is a great book. If you haven't seen it, even for if you decide to stay in academia, I mean, it's a great book about refreshing your knowledge in statistics and data mining and machine learning in astronomy. The one bottom left is a very important book if you like to go into deep learning. It's a theoretical, purely like theoretical mathematical book. In any case, you have to refresh your theoretical knowledge because it will be part of the interviews, and it will be a pity if you lose an opportunity just because, you know, they made a question that you couldn't answer and it's basically something that you already know. And definitely you have to research the companies you apply for, not only to find out what you need to say, you know, for you to get a job, but also to see actually if they really match your criteria, if you'd like to work there. Because there are so many options, as I mentioned. So you have the opportunity actually to filter out and keep only those companies that you're interested in. And a very important thing is the personality and culture. Generally speaking, that's something that people do not understand or they don't necessarily know beforehand. However, now that I'm working actually in the field, as I will mention a bit, believe me, 50% of the job interviews has to do with your personality and culture. What that means is actually if you fit in the culture of the company that you're going at, basically the group that you're going to work with. So basically, the first 2 or 3 interviews perhaps are going to be about your experience, your theoretical knowledge in the subject, your ideas. But then you will definitely have a couple of interviews where you will get together with, and you will have to talk with people that you're going to collaborate in the future, and they will assess you from a, you know, the culture standpoint to see if you are actually going to fit well within that team, because those companies, they need teams that they work together, you know, as a team and not individuals. So that's very important, and obviously be yourself. I mean, one has to be themselves and show what they really are, what they know, you know, and their personality. And yeah, that's it. You'll definitely get a job. So in my case, I gathered this information, tried to do my best. I found the job. For me, it was also like a little bit more difficult because at the time there were not that many jobs that were remote. And I was still in Mexico, and I was looking for a job in the UK. So I didn't have the opportunity to go, you know, to be interviewed in person, because at the time, most companies, they wanted people to go in person for several of the interviews. Still, it took me less than a month to find a job. Actually, I found several jobs, and I had to keep the one that I felt the best. That was in a company that was called at the time Mindex. It was a startup here in London, and it was at that time acquired by HireVue, a much bigger company that's based in Salt Lake City in Utah. And HireVue is basically a video interviewing and talent assessment platform. It's the largest that exists right now, and it provides with various solutions to very large clients. I don't know which ones I should disclose. I guess Hilton and major airlines like Delta Airline. We have also many customers in the government sector and several in Greece as well, major banks. And so in those cases, you know, those companies, they have actually huge number of applicants applying for various jobs every year, and they want to assess them very quickly, filter out those, and find actually which candidates are best for which positions within the bank. So yeah, HireVue is providing with several solutions to help, you know, with the screening, the interviewing, and the assessment of those candidates. And as a member of the data science team, as Vasilis mentioned, I'm a senior data science at the team now. We are about 10, 15 people now. We've acquired now recently, as of last week, actually, another company. So I guess the new team will be like 30 people. We do various things. So one is we continue research. So that was the main reason that I chose this company instead of the other jobs I was given at that time. We still like a major part of our day-to-day work is actually research, not in astronomy, obviously. It's in a different field called IO psychology. It's industrial and organizational psychology or business psychology. And this is a real field, and it's out there since the early 1900s, I think. I think it was first developed by the US Army at the time to find like the best, or the UK Army to find the best, candidates for different roles, to match candidates to different roles in the military. So basically, we do research in that field. We get to publish. We're collaborating with academics, so outside the business sector. These are 3 papers we published last year with some academics from universities here in London. We also work in algorithmic fairness, which is a major thing right now, how to make algorithms to be fair. And as you can understand, talent acquisition is one of the sectors that your algorithms have to be fair. And then our weekly routine is very similar to academia, I would say. So we have our, apart from our work, we have our weekly seminars with the science team. We get together. Of course, we have people from various disciplines, so we get together and discuss various topics. In many occasions, we discuss like several advances in science, for instance, lately about large language models and how we can use them in our business. We have also like some weekly calls with data science learning. So as I mentioned, like in the data science team, we have a few physicists, we have a mathematician, we have bioengineers, we have linguists, computer engineers. So, we get together and we actually teach each other several things that we consider important for that job. And also we have our conferences where we get together and discuss about, like various things around the industry. And when we do that, actually, so when we have the company conferences, we usually do them in Salt Lake City in Utah, where we get together and we have our own pub as well. Yeah, so that was it very quickly. The journey continues, as they say. And yeah, I hope I didn't say too much. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you very much, Todori. This is very interesting. So while I'm waiting, I don't know if there are, I will ask a general question first while people possibly are warming up. When you decided to do the transition, right?
Yeah.
And you had, as you mentioned, one of the advantages of working in the private sector is because you can actually select possibly an area where you would like to live and work, yes, rather than going where since there are many more opportunities. How did you start searching? What did you do? I mean, you said that you need to talk to people, right? But what did you do?
Yes, right. So, I mean, there are several websites. Right now, there are even more. But back in the day, there were several like Indeed and LinkedIn. So I started searching. The problem was I didn't know exactly at the beginning. I didn't know exactly what suits better for me. Like I started talking to like UOC alumni and other people that I knew that I've made the transition as well. And one of them, for instance, went into finance. Some others, they went into data science, machine learning, like various fields, right? So I started talking to them, first of all. And I narrowed down that actually the one that I liked the most was data science. And, I found it very interesting, but even data science, it's vast. So there are so many options. So then I went into like those platforms like LinkedIn, and I started searching for jobs and I started filtering jobs. put them aside, and then look into like more carefully into those companies and see what they do. Some of them, they were, for instance, doing like cryptocurrencies and such stuff. I didn't find it very, very interesting, to be honest. So then I start looking. I still wanted to stay somewhere that I would be able to do like a little bit of research. So I selected like some of these companies. One was this one, obviously. There was also the TfL, the Transport for London. I remember at that time. This is the company that actually, it's like Attico Metro. It's the company that has like the public transport in the city of London. And they had also a very interesting science team. They did research on transportation, and I don't remember now the details, but yeah, I found like some of them quite interesting. Then obviously you apply, and you get to, like in the first call, you get to talk to some people, and you start like you have to ask them about details about that company, and what is going to be your role there.
But can you, just before giving the floor to Grigoris, who has raised his hand,
yes,
just by the job announcement, can you tell, based on your experience, can you tell about not the details of the position, right? But whether, for example, you have the opportunity to do sort of like more research oriented, or you're like service oriented, or is it?
It depends. In some occasions you can do that. In others, no. But then you start. The thing is that's why I mentioned, like, you have to research the company to see what they actually do, and then you find out. Like, so for instance, there are some companies that have they actually work in a very huge like range of subjects. So when you try to understand what they do, it's really impossible. However, if you try to deep dive into them and see like what they actually do, you see that they have several sectors. For instance, like Apple, right? Apple, they have in a daily basis, they open like new positions for data scientists. Some of them, they're going to work in retail. They're going to make predictions about like how to promote products to sell better. They have people that they do research on like fields that are actually, more academic style, like how to develop like a new large language model, how to develop a new algorithm to make predictions, how to develop algorithms to do like algorithmic fairness. And then you have, of course, like other people. So it depends. Like small startups, it's easier to understand what they do because, first of all, I had to mention this. Usually when you go to a startup, you will get to do lots of things. Like your role is not going to be restricted to one single thing, obviously, because they don't have that many people. So you'll get to gain like more experience on, a much, and you have also the flexibility to explore many different things. When you go to a bigger company, you will have a very specific role to fulfill. So depends what people want to. I would suggest people to start from a startup or a small company in general. It's easier. The environment is way more friendly, and it resembles a lot of academia, especially because early on, most startups, even the leadership of the company, it's mostly people that are engineers. They are people that they came from academia. So the whole environment of the company is like that. When you go to a bigger company, of course, like most of the leadership and the people above making the decisions, they are basically, business people. So it's a very different thing. Like they're product oriented. You have deliverables. You have more specific schedule and tasks.
Okay, thank you very much, Grigori.
Yeah, hi, Theodore. Thanks for the talk. I just wanted to ask two things. One is follow-up of what you have been describing so far. So one of the things that you mentioned was to research companies. So what would be some of criteria to look for? I mean, what would you consider as important criteria? For example, okay, of course, you are in different states, you would have different criteria, but what would somebody start with?
Yeah, okay. So one is actually to see, like, let's start from very basic. So firstly, if you can work in that company in terms of like the place, so if you make a decision that I want to work from Heraklion for a company, you have to choose companies, obviously, that they even are based somewhere in Greece or in Heraklion, or they allow remote working, like fully remote, basically. There are plenty of those. Then you have to filter through companies to see basically what they do. As I mentioned, like there are different sectors. If you want to go into finance, it's a different thing, and it requires different skill sets. So it requires mostly like a lot of programming and a lot of basic, theoretical mathematics, calculus, and differential equations and stuff. If you want to go to other sectors like data science, machine learning, etc., that requires mostly statistics and linear algebra. So it depends, like what you want to do. Like it's your choice in the end, right? Also, some of them, like when people will do this transition, again, as I mentioned, like I did it for personal, like lifestyle reasons, but some people will do it for the money, perhaps. So if you want to go for more money, probably you will have to choose like sectors that give more money, like finance. So it really depends. That's why I said like you have first to talk to people before start, searching and filtering out the different options. And of course, talk to people and see what's your skill set. Like, what do you think you've acquired all these years that you'll that's important for those jobs. I think from the astrophysics standpoint, like at least from observational astrophysics, we know like people that they've worked several years in observational astrophysics, as I was. We have a lot of experience in dealing with messy data, which is very important. Like, especially in my job right now, I'm dealing with data that are coming from people like job applicants, right? Super messy data. Not messier though than what I've seen in astronomy. Then you have obviously programming skills, statistics, all this stuff. I spoke to other people that they did like they were mostly in like theoretical and modeling, theoretical astrophysics and modeling. They moved towards finance. They're building like numerical models that they are going to be used by banks, financial derivatives, I don't know, like all these products, right? So it really depends on what you want to do. Like, definitely people coming from academia, they have the skill set to do lots of jobs out there. So it really depends. It's their choice where they want to head at.
Okay, thanks. I think in principle you answered also my second question which was about what skills we have acquired already. So
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Harry?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
First of all, thanks for your great talk. My question is, what programming languages have you mastered in order to become a senior data scientist?
Yeah, so good question. So most of the years I was in academia, we were using IDL. However, IDL doesn't exist a lot outside of academia, I would say, especially in astronomy. Python is the one that's mostly used, like 95% of the cases, I would say, at least in data science and machine learning. Of course, if you want to go into more basic programming, perhaps like C++, Java, depends on the companies, of course, like JavaScript sometimes we find useful. If you work with databases, probably SQL, although, usually what will happen is that companies, they will already have like specialists, database specialists and engineers. So they will probably create some sort of some sort of a pool where you can pull your data basically. And Python, I would say, it's the most important right now, I think.
Okay,
but,
thank you.
I mean, whatever everybody, like the thing is that whatever you know, it's important. Like, even if you don't know a specific programming language, as you'll know, I mean, you can easily learn a new one and transfer your skills to the new one, right? So it will only take you some time, but everybody can do
that.
Okay, understood.
Ilya?
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for the talk. I was wondering, okay, based on your steps, on the 4 steps that you mentioned earlier,
Yes.
let's say that you find the company that you would like to apply for a job.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering, what are the steps, the specific steps that you have to follow for the preparation before the interview? Because you said that it's not only one and unique interview, it's a number of interviews. So
Yes.
About the theoretical part, the questions that they maybe ask you, what you should study before? I mean, you just go back and you refresh your knowledge in statistics from the university courses or something like that. And the second question is, how much time do you think that you need about the preparation of each interview?
Yeah. So yeah, good questions. So like to prepare, like let me start from this. So usually what will happen is that you will have a first screening interview with a recruiter. So this person is not a specialist. They don't know anything about like details about the job, right? They will only ask you like, why do you want this job? When you will be ready for this job? Because keep in mind, like most companies, they would like you to start working right away. When they publish a job, when they announce a job, they want somebody to start working right away. Of course, you can keep the bug for a while. They will try to press you a lot, but you can say that I have a contract with the university or like a business, and I have to give like 1 or 2 months notice or something. More than that, it's a bit sketchy. They will not take it well. Also, they will ask you about more or less how much money you're expecting, although at that point, you still don't discuss about the money. But you know, they will try to screen you and filter it, like to see if you're a good match for the company. Then they will actually refer you to the actual interviewing team that usually consists from people that are either more specialists on the subject, like special recruiters, or even people that they work on the team that they want to hire somebody in their team. So in those cases, they will usually ask for, so there are 2 sorts of interviews. Like bigger companies, they might go, you know, into asking theoretical questions about like, what do you know about, I don't know, like why ridge regression is better than lasso regression? Like if you apply for a machine learning job, right? Or a data science job, or which mathematical, like statistical tools you're going to use to measure significance in a X or Y problem. So, I mean, you have to refresh the basics, right? Not going really deep into it. They're not going to ask you to solve like some mathematical problem or doing something like that. Perhaps if you apply for a financial, like a very theoretical job in finance, they might, I've heard people asking them to even solve like a differential equation right there. But yeah, it really depends on the job. Now, how much time? I would suggest before start applying for jobs, one good thing is to try to, like, once you know more or less what you want, is to sit down and write like some of the basic questions that they're usually asking, because they're going to ask you for sure, like, why do you want to do this job? And why do you think you're good at this job? Or what do you think are the weaknesses that you have, and how you're going to, you know, complete, like you're going to complete your skill set by doing this job, or such things, right? So you have to think about it a little bit beforehand and write them down. The good thing is that most probably, like once you do that and you have some idea about those answers, then most of the questions they're going to do, like around these general questions, they're going to be around those subjects. So you will already be prepared and know. And keep in mind that people really pay attention if you're prepared to those interviews. It's really important. Then about the specific questions that they might ask you, that comes now to the part where if you're talking with people within the teams, depending on the job, again, they might ask you, like some companies will ask you to take like some computer, like some programming assessment, or they might ask you to like describe you some problem and tell you, like, we have this kind of data, you know, actually yesterday we had this kind of data and we try to deal with this problem. However, we see that our models do not work like this way. What do you think this is? So, you know, try to make a discussion. most of those interviews, especially when you're talking to people like your peers, they're very relaxed, and you never feel that they're like really interviewing you, or they're pressing you to the corner or something. They're super relaxed, and people are very friendly, and they know that some of these things you can't think about them right away, right? So don't be stressed really about it. Yeah, I don't remember if you asked something else.
I have time for one more short question. Do I have time? No.
Yeah, go ahead. Grigoris is afterwards.
Okay, thank you. So, as you know, nowadays, football analytics or basketball analytics jobs are very famous, right? So I was thinking, how easy is to go from academia, research in observational astrophysics, in such kind of jobs, in the terms that you are completely inexperienced, right? I mean that you know how to analyze astronomical data, you know how to interpret them, but this is a completely different thing to go to do analytics in football or basketball, or I don't know, volleyball. Okay, so I was wondering during the interviews or the job application in such jobs, if this thing is, how much important is this thing? I mean, that you don't have an experience, and if it's good, if you can take or follow a course, like for example, I found many online courses regarding analytics in sports and things like that. And is it useful if you go for to apply in such a job?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly for that field, but what I can say in general is that, like, when they will get you, especially like the first job outside of academia, they won't do it because you will you have experience on that field, and actually they don't care that much about that. What they know is that you have already acquired a skill set, specific skill set while in academia, and they very well appreciate that. And anyways, they have like a period, like usually 6 months to a year, where you're going to learn. Like when I moved into this company, I had no idea about business psychology, didn't even know that this thing existed, right? So you of course have like some onboarding, and you have like people, where they're showing you and they're teaching you on a day-to-day basis. You're discussing with your colleagues as well, like about those fields. They will show you some interest, but you have to show interest as well. So during the job interview, it doesn't really matter that much. I don't think that it matters that much. If in one, that of course has to do with a specific company and the specific individuals that are going to interview you. So if you be interviewed by a company and the people start asking you about like your experience in that field, and you say that I don't have experience, and they say, well, we're very sorry, then you can apply for another job, like in a different company in that field, or a third company or a fourth company, etc. Right? It's not it's not necessary that if a team in a specific sector considers something important, like experience on that sector, that all other teams will do. So yeah, don't bother about that.
Thank you.
Maybe Grigoris has raised his hand.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you very much for the very interesting talk. So, my understanding is that you moved from, like doing the research in astrophysics to doing research in, big data and data mining and, all these problems with data science. So my question is, when you go and you try to demonstrate this skill set in interviews, did you use did you follow a formal way of learning those? I mean, did you select it like to follow classes online and stuff like that? Did you do it like, and hands-on? And, moving on, it's like when people try to quantify whether, you have the skill set that is required, do they count like, how many Coursera courses you've taken, how many courses from the university, the stars in GitHub, your Kaggle score? I mean, what is the metric that, a company would look for?
Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, they don't really care about the online courses. The online courses you can do, and they will be very useful for you, first of all, to refresh things in your mind or better understand some things that you haven't learned. The good thing is that, like, what I found myself understanding throughout this experience is that, during our academic years, especially early on, like during our undergrad studies, we've gained so much experience, so much knowledge on like fields like linear algebra and other stuff that we didn't appreciate at that time enough. And then I figured out that basically all neural networks and deep learning and all this stuff is just simple linear algebra and things that we've done in the first couple of years of our studies. So what I want to say, it doesn't really matter. I would say that the best you can do in any case, even if you don't want to go outside of academia, is try to start, following the state-of-the-art techniques like machine learning, deep neural networks, and all this stuff, CNNs, into your daily practice right now when you're in academia. That's how you're going to gain more like valuable experience with dealing with these things. And I think in job interviews, they don't bother that much about like those online courses you've done, because keep in mind one thing: people with like a master's and a PhD degree, they are very few out there. So when they interview you and you have a master's or a PhD in astrophysics, they will not bother because you do or you don't have any like online Coursera courses, or something like that. You have a PhD in astrophysics, that's it, right? So they expect you that you have already, and they know that you have like most of this knowledge. And the best thing is not only the skills that like mathematics and programming, etc. You actually have a problem-solving skill set. Like you can sit down, understand what the problem is, no matter what the problem is, understand what the problem is, figure out a way to solve it and solve it. So they know that. So instead, what they will appreciate perhaps is during the job interviews, try to, as I mentioned earlier, like during the preparation, try to write down or, put in your mind that like when you will be asked about what you did in academia all those years, try to, as I mentioned, you're researching the company that you're applying for, and you see that X, Y, Z are important in that company. So try to focus on the things you have done in academia and the knowledge you acquired, as compared to like how you can transfer your skills from this field to the other field. So for instance, if that's a machine learning job, like in my case, I could have said that, I've dealt a lot with messy data, with machine learning models and a lot of statistics, in astrophysics, etc. And dealing with like data sets that include data coming from people is very similar in terms of like what data we get and the mathematical tools we're using to assess them. So yeah, try to make the connection and show how your skills are transferable. Basically, that's more important than online courses. You can definitely do online courses, just refresh or acquire some additional knowledge, but yeah, only that.
What about like traditional courses, like university graduate courses? I mean, would they make a difference?
So, I mean, that's what I said. Like most of the knowledge, at least in data science that I know, we've already acquired in the undergrad level. Like even the most complex large language models that you see like lately in the news, like ChatGPT, etc. Those are basically simple linear algebra with some tricks in between. So they're adding some tricks. Like you can read like some papers about the tricks they're adding. So when they are doing all the back propagation or forward propagation, they will add some layers, as they call them, that they are dropouts or whatever else, right? So you can read about this, but mathematically speaking, those are very simple to describe. It's only that people will learn from experience, let's say, why, setting a level, like a dropout level or a flattening level after some deep layer is going to do something. But yeah, so you can read what's out there, but.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Alexandre?
Thank you very much. The talk was very interesting. So my question is, it's actually a short one, so I have two. So when you switch careers, like in the case from academia to industry, you have to sort of start from the beginning, for instance, from a junior position. That's what one would expect. Like from a PhD into academia, you would probably
not necessarily.
Oh, not necessarily. Okay. So, but okay, let's take the. Okay, that's interesting. I expected that the answer would be that, but so even when you're starting out, is it usual that companies would be lenient on allowing people to work remotely from the beginning, or would you expect that you would have a year? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So most companies right now, especially in the field like so mostly companies that they are related to like startups and companies that are related to like software as a service or like such sectors. Like most of those companies, they actually moved 50 to 100% remotely right now. There are various reasons for that. One is that they don't need to spend money to have like multiple headquarters around the world. But most importantly, by doing so, like imagine that you're a company as like the company I work for in Salt Lake City, Utah. Obviously, if you have people working from the office, that means that you can only access the talent pool of Salt Lake City, Utah, or people that are willing to move to Salt Lake City, Utah, and that's very restricted, right? Whereas if you say, well, you know something, I'm going to open up to the world and hire the best from there. So in that case, you can basically get much better talent, much quicker. And one more thing is that actually companies before COVID, especially, they were seeing like a very large dropout, very large turning, how to call it. Like many people were quitting their jobs like within the first couple of years. Perhaps they didn't like the job was not as they're expecting it, so they were moving to a different company, etc. And as I mentioned earlier, the first 6 months to a year is a period that you're still learning, so they're not expecting you to produce that much, right? So if you quit after that, then the company basically gained nothing from getting you. So they found out during COVID that actually people working from home, that improved significantly their lifestyle and their experience within the company, the culture, all the stuff that they mentioned earlier. So they're willing to do that rather than losing their people. In fact, most of these companies, they even moved to a different scheme. Like the company I work for right now, we have we've given, except for like in addition to the fully remotely thing, we are also given some other benefits in that respect, like every second Friday we're off, we don't work. We have 10 additional days of vacation. Like in addition to the days we had before, we have 10 additional days that the whole company shuts down. So that because they knew that in the summer, most of the people take their vacation. So why keeping the company open for the 5-10 people that stay in there, right? So they start doing such things in order to keep the people in the companies.
Okay, that's interesting because that was one of my concerns is that academia, I like the way that things are done in the sense that you're given a problem. No one, I mean, of course, this differs from supervisor to supervisor, but in general, you would probably not be wrong in saying that you have a relative freedom compared to what I would imagine industry is. But from what you say, but from what you say, this is not entirely true because it's more sort of like the mentality of academia in the sense that you have a problem, you have to solve it. Of course, you have to do meetings, but it's not like the 9 to 5 go do your job and then leave.
Not really. So it depends on the jobs again. Like I have some colleagues and especially like some ex-alumni from the University of Crete that they work here in a couple of banks here in London. In that case, they will have to go the 9 to 5, at the office a couple of days per week, and the rest of the days they work from home. Even them, so that's the worst case scenario that I know right now. Like a couple of days from the office and then 3 days off. Generally speaking, you have freedom. You can work. Of course, the difference I think with academia is that in industry, when you work on something, it cannot be purely theoretical from a theoretical standpoint. Like not only purely interesting from a theoretical standpoint, it has to have value or some value in the end of it. So you have to show like if you want to work on some subject and you have some interesting idea, you have to talk to your managers or people, the product, as they call it, that they're designing the product roadmap, how the product is going to move the next few months, and show them that actually this idea makes sense and it worth investing some money there, that it will deliver something. A difference that I find from academia, which I like, to be honest, is that whatever you work on, you get to see in action like relatively soon. Like, so you're working on something, on some subject, you find some solution. Like I was working on something regarding algorithmic fairness, and we found some solution of how to improve our models. Next day, the models are on, the new models, in production, clients are using them, people are using them. That's it. So you get to see like actually the fruit of your work right away in action. That's very very nice, I think. I find it very positive. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And sorry.
Yeah. Any other questions? I was about to ask if there are any other questions.
I have another one which is very short. But I don't see any other hands. If anyone has a question, they can go ahead.
I would like to ask a general one, maybe just so that I will not forget. Theodori, if I recall, one of the goals of the company you are working on is sort of like to help other companies evaluate candidates, right? So, yes. So it is, most of us are not very well prepared in sort of like putting our skills in a piece of paper, like presenting our experience in a CV, even when we apply for an academic job, right? How important is the ability to actually present yourself and sell yourself before you actually reach the interview level, right? Because is it, I've been
the most important.
Encouraging students, for example, here, unsuccessfully, because, unlike Max Planck directors in Greece don't have that much power. Plus, they possibly because the position is not for life, is that it is important to sort of like to have a web page, right? Or to be able to have a one-page CV. Since when we are in a PhD, we haven't quantized gravity yet several times, so we don't have a lot of things to say. So we should be able to say things in one page in a coherent manner. Is it necessary to have a LinkedIn and get endorsements? I mean, what is it? Because, companies and headhunters go looking around for people as well, right? So should we be careful what we put on Facebook? For example, I know that you don't have one, so it's hard to document what you've been doing when you are visiting Crete or you go on holidays with Tanyo and the other people you
I was really careful. No, yeah, that's absolutely true. Yes, that's absolutely true. So basically, having a LinkedIn is a super important thing, and being able to actually summarize in a single page, never a second page, in a single page, and not even like not these tricks where we actually make smaller font, and we fill the whole page. No, in normal font with big gaps, try to summarize what's most important about you in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets max. People that they are like recruiters in businesses, they are going to see hundreds, if not thousands of CVs. So they're not going to focus, especially when they see a CV that's several pages long or it's super dense, they're not going to focus on it. Just say, I should be considered for this job for X, Y, Z. That's it, from my experience. So basically, you don't need to mention a lot about like publish the X and Y and Z and like all these papers, etc. You can say like that. Depends on the job you're applying. Probably you will have to modify your CV every time before you submit it. So you will modify it to say, if you apply for a job in machine learning, for instance, and they have something like research also involved, like in bioengineering or bio research, you can say that I've worked with messy data sets in those years. I have this experience in, you don't need to list all the different tools that just say Python. That's it. You don't say like this X, Y, whatever libraries. Just say Python, just say machine learning, deep learning, whatever. And And yeah, it's really important to like have an up-to-date LinkedIn page, especially because recruiters are actually actively looking at it. It's true that while you're still in academia, you'll not get many of them texting you for job opportunities. Perhaps you can change I think you can change your status like from then not seeking jobs to actively seeking jobs. But one more thing is that once you find that's a very important thing that I didn't mention earlier, is that the first step from academia to business is the most difficult, in terms that people, as somebody asked earlier, like people don't know you very well, and they don't know they know that you don't have experience in industry. So of course you can convince them in the interview, but it might take more than one interview to convince them. Once you find your first job in industry, then people will keep bothering you on a daily basis for more jobs. Like that's the rule. At least this is what I know from personal experience, and most people I know that they move to business like from the day one. They start receiving like in LinkedIn job offers, and recruiters asking them to connect to their network and all this stuff. So the first step is the most difficult. You have to be prepared, and definitely, as Vasilis mentioned, you have to have like a very nice, well-maintained LinkedIn account and one-page CV with the 3, 4, 5 most important things that you think you've acquired in your career, like transferable skills. Not necessarily I worked with Herschel, Pax, and Spire data. People don't know what this is, and probably they will never understand. Right? So yeah, I will totally agree with that.
Thank you. And just before I give the Alexandros, who wants to ask the last question, is it feasible? I presume there are many websites out there where they have information on how to prepare your CV. Some are free, some are possibly not free. If you have some time, could you share with us some links that you think that may be useful? Not for people to apply for a specific position, but say general guidelines that you may have encountered through the years that even within your group you found them interesting.
Sure, yeah.
Just do a reply to all, and people can get it.
Yes. Of course, and also because I can speak from because I work on this specific industry, like our business grows more and more day to day. So basically, you may find yourself taking one of those online interviews and assessments. People tend to be a little bit scared about those and stressed, to be honest, because I know from the inside how these things work. Actually, you shouldn't be, because first of all, you're not going to be assessed. Usually what will happen is that we'll have an algorithm transcribing what you say and then comparing those to other people, with what other people mention in their interviews. It doesn't matter if you're stressed, if you froze at some point and you didn't you were not thinking, etc. Just say what you have to say, whatever you consider important. They're not measuring stress. And also very important, we'll do a lot of work in making those algorithms being fair. So one thing that I'm dealing in a day-to-day basis is I'm getting data from major industries, recruiting data from the past when they used to hire people. So they have trained recruiters that they've done this job all their lives, or they studied this thing in, as I mentioned, industrial organizational psychology. And all their lives they were hiring people. And then when I get the data and do some analysis, I find that they were super biased in all possible respects that you can imagine, from gender, ethnic. Even we found last year that there are even people that tend to give jobs to people that they're more good looking than people that are less good looking. So we have all these intrinsic biases, right? So in a way, being assessed by a mathematical tool, if it's properly trained and properly, properly trained and mitigated, as we say, they remove all this bias from it, then might be preferable. And definitely it's not going to be the one and last job, one and last shot you have, because usually what will happen, those algorithms, they will just create the way that they work. Is not that they will say you should hire this person, you shouldn't hire the other person. Usually what they will say is that this person is very strong in the X, Y, Z skills. The other person is in the other skills, etc., etc. And then they allow recruiters to make comparisons between the people so that when they will have the follow-up interviews, they will know where to focus and what to discuss with those people.
Okay, thanks a lot. Alexander, you wanted to ask something, I think.
Actually, my question was your question as well, so it got answered. Thank you so much.
Okay. So, so just to close, we have a couple of examples, I think, of people also in the department here who are in Greece and they are working with companies abroad, I think in the US. Yorgos Barbaris is one, and I think Paolo is also doing
Paolo,
that.
yeah, that's right.
So I would encourage those who are interested to chat with them, because you have sort of like a physics, computational physics background and also an astrophysics background. So, so that point is something useful. And as far as I can tell, it's quite interesting because you don't have to leave the beautiful island of Crete. You can work remotely. You're not going to get as much money as you would if you were to stay in Salt Lake City. But on the other hand, this may not necessarily be a disadvantage. So
yeah,
depending how, you know, the priorities in life. So
value for money is going to be better in Crete, I would say.
Okay, since there are no more questions, I would like to thank you, Thodori, once more for this very interesting talk. Thank you all for being here and asking pertinent questions. I think this helped all the discussion, and I'll stop recording here.